Good morning, world. I'm Steve Rao, the host of Pod and Roku TV's World Edition, greeting you live from the All-America city of Morrisville in Research Triangle Park, North Carolina, the eighth largest state in the United States of America. We greet you on the show from all around the world as we end the week, a very intense week of divisive politics, a new Speaker of the House coming in the Republican Congress of the United States, and everyone watching now with wide eyes of what's going to happen in Georgia with the Herschel Walker race, and continued discussion of what happened to the Republicans, given the fact that Donald J. Trump has announced he will be running again for the presidency of the United States in 2024, trying to become the first U.S. president since Grover Cleveland to lose an election and come back after one term with another president and making a return back into the Oval Office. Now, with that being said, we're going to talk about a lot of things today. I did want to begin before I do my commentary to just say we may have a guest coming in today from Seva Diwali. The rising inflation and food costs have made many underprivileged families go to sleep hungry all over the world. And the Seva Diwali is an initiative, a very noble initiative to feed those families with 40 plus local and 364 national organizations collectively making efforts to collect non-perishable food items to feed America. With joyful Dussehra and Diwali festivals, the festivals of light and light over darkness, they're celebrating this in RTP. And so they've invited everyone. It's been going on from September 24th to Sunday, November 20th, to collaborate during all of these months and bring in goods. And so they'll be celebrating this tomorrow in Morrisville. But I want to thank them for their efforts. And they may be joining the show today, this morning. Real quickly, some of the things we're going to talk about. The UN's climate summit in Egypt has broken down. They were not able to get a lot of the agreements in progress on new ways to tackle climate change. Developing nations, which are often vulnerable to rising temperatures, want more money from rich nations who are responsible for most of the emissions. And we're just going to see the debate that continues. And we're going to talk about that. Twitter. You may want to get those tweets out soon because Twitter may be down because Elon Musk has basically put an ultimatum, and he said, choose between working longer hours or take your severance pay. And a lot of people took severance pay. He's also requiring everyone to go into the office, no more remote work. And so they're going to lose a lot of engineers. So we're going to see what that's going to do to Twitter. And then finally, the last thing we'll talk about is Nancy Pelosi. She is stepping down as the top House Democrat after 2 decades. In 2002, she became the first woman to hold the office of Speaker, which is in third in line to the presidency of the United States. Representative Hakeem Jeffries of New York is an early favorite to replace her if the Democrats ever take over the House. But right now, it looks like it's going to be Kevin McCarthy, who will be the new speaker when the new Congress convenes in January. Finally, closing arguments will begin today in the high-profile January 6th trial. The founder and other members of Oath Keepers, a far-right extremist group, are accused of helping organize the 2021 attack on the Capitol. All this while the very president that they're going after, still the Justice Department, is formally a presidential candidate in 2024. Never really happened before in history. But here we go. Let's get started. Today we have with us Mark Lee, the Wizard of Oz, the co-producer, Shaquille Latimer from Down Under briefly, Chris Greco, our foreign policy and military analyst, who's going to have other things to share with us, and of course, Lee Luton Rhodes, and we have others possibly joining. So, well, gentlemen, we began today with. Before we get to climate change, let's get politics out of the way. You've got a new speaker possibly coming in, Kevin McCarthy. Pelosi will be a member of Congress, but she's going to be stepping down as speaker. And it's going to be interesting, right? All of this.
It'll be very interesting. I do have 2 quick things to ask about that and everything. One, I had the pleasure of meeting Hakeem not that long ago because he was actually down here for a campaign event for the Democrats. I think he would be a strong leader. I understand that he might be a secondary person in terms of who's going to get it and everything, but he's definitely very charismatic. It reminded me in some ways of some of the nature of Obama and others. So I definitely think that he would be a great speaker if that is something that is given the opportunity for it to come his way, and all in that space. Like I said, when he was here at an event that I was actually the MC at, I was actually had the pleasure of introducing him. So I was actually quite impressed with him and felt that he was very charismatic and all in that space. But we'll see what happens in that regards. I do have to have a teasing remark as well, because we like to have good times, we like to have fun, and of course we do have your guests that are here as well when you're ready to get to them, Steve. But I've got to tease you because we've got some people that have got some amazing skills, but dancing is not one of them, Chris, because I was watching you in the background and I'm thinking that the dancing was not quite happening. You were doing these dance moves and I'm going like, nope, that's not happening at the disco or anything in that spot. So if we're going to the disco or any other kind of dance place, I'm keeping you away from me because your foot might step on me and all in that space. So I'd give you a hard time about that, because I'm going like, those are just some dance moves.
Let's bring in our special guests, and then if you could just say their names, Mark, because I don't have that open, and we'll go ahead.
No problem. And then you've got actually a couple of them that have come in and all of that. So one of them is Arati Namani, and if I mispronounce that, I apologize, and all in that space. And the other person that I see is Shakar and
wonderful.
Nalaboche. I believe that's how you pronounce it.
Well, welcome to the show, Sekar and Arati. I'm Steve Rao, the host of Roku TV World Edition. Sorry for the last minute notice. You're being viewed. Hundreds of thousands of people around the world and country watch this live podcast and television show. So we want to welcome you to the show. Real quickly, I did sort of a disclaimer already because I didn't know if you all were coming on. But if you could just describe to us AIM Seva Diwali, the organization, the purpose, the mission, and a little bit about what's going on in North Carolina, the Triangle region with this organization.
Sure. I can talk a little bit about Seva. Seva is a humanitarian nonprofit service-based organization. It was started in 1989 as a part of a bigger movement in India. And our goal is to service humanity irrespective of nationality, race, or any other distinction. And we specialize in disaster relief and rehabilitation. And we have several programs like family services, education, health, and child and refugee welfare.
Fantastic. We thank you for doing this. And now I'm going to go to Shekar. Shekar, so
Sure.
Tell us a little bit about this. This is a celebration of all the Diwali, Dussehra festivals, of course, the Darshana exhibit. We've had the leaders there on the show as well. Can you talk a little bit about, first of all, the connection between Diwali and also kind of like what's going on this Saturday in Morrisville?
Sure. Thank you, Steve. So basically, this Saturday we are, gathering as part of the community, so basically, like Seva Diwali is every year we celebrate, we run this program. The main aim is to, communicate all the, communities around, and then, trying to, share the, whatever that we can share the food, or it's kind of a food donation drive. It's basically a Hindu heritage month called October. It runs from October until November. So this month we just communicate with most of the communities and get the food, and then trying to donate it to the food banks locally. So it's happening nationwide, and this year we have in the RTP area almost 35 local organizations combined together, and that's a huge response from each community. And we have almost 4,000 pounds of food donated already, and then we are expecting more by 20th of by Sunday. So Monday we are trying to distribute it to the food bank in Durham. So it was a huge huge response so far. So yeah, that's the thing. So yeah.
Fantastic. Well, we're so excited about you all doing this. I'm going to open it up to the floor of the panel. We have about 20 minutes with you, 15 minutes, as long as you want to say. You can stay for the divisive political talks that we have. But today we're going to be talking a little bit about the climate summit and also the midterm elections and Donald Trump's running for president again. But Guys, I'm going to open it up to you all for any
Yeah, I
questions.
had a question for Arati because she had definitely mentioned about the refugee situation, and I know that a lot of time when we think about refugees, we think about places that are immediately in the news. Definitely, a lot of times we think about some of the African nations, and of course, the many refugees that are coming from war-torn Ukraine and all in that space, and of course, even some of the refugees from Latin American countries. But I don't know that we hear enough about refugees from the Asian nations, and particularly those around India. So I just wondered if you could share a little bit about what the refugee situations are in that part of the world, because I don't know that we hear enough about that even in mainstream media.
Yeah, so we have a Bhutanese refugee situation that we were working very with different organizations. We were helping them settle down in this area, and also there were some other countries that there were some Nepali refugees also we were working with. Also, there are certain programs that we ran, like right now with Ukraine, we are doing Ukraine relief, and also with the Hurricane Ian that happened recently, helping out in Florida. So yeah, SEVA does a lot of those programs, and we've been working with different organizations too.
Yep. And Shikar, just really quickly, I know some of the other people may have questions as well, but in a week from yesterday will be Thanksgiving. I know I'm planning some of my Thanksgiving meals and all in that kind of way. But I was just wondering, are there any efforts that are tied into that traditional American holiday with some of the efforts that y'all are doing? Because I do know that a lot of times food banks are looking to help those homeless, and we do know that the homeless situation, unfortunately, there are too many homeless here in North Carolina and throughout the United States. Not as much as in other parts of the world, but still too much for my mind and all in that space. So just wondering what y'all are doing to work with some of the pantries, and if that work is still continuing to go on.
That's absolutely right. So that's where we choose this particular month for, like, as a part of the Seva Diwali. So it's definitely helping for, like, especially like Thanksgiving come, like, just a few days away, and all the food banks will be filled up, especially like not only this particular program. We are continuously year long, we have the programs like encouraging the youth to get into, like, just go to the places where the shelters, and then we cook some food for them, especially on, like, the Thanksgiving time, or probably even the entire the year. All the programs will run just to make sure that nobody going to sleep without food. So
Now, tell me real quickly before last couple questions here.
sure.
What's the feedback been of the youth? They've been really has this been eye opening for them? Are they excited about what they're doing? I mean, could you share with us a little bit about that?
Exactly. Yeah. So basically, the youth were mostly involved in this ones, and also we encourage a lot for them, because they are the building blocks of this country, and the community as well, right? So whatever that we learn, we try to share with the kids, and let them drive the program. Sometimes, like, we have a separate programs for the youth, especially the program called Seva Lead. Right after this, we are launching that, and they were already connected for sure, and they're so encouraged. And also we are trying to encourage them, that giving them some, like, the work hours, like, how they just helping, and then based on that, like, the volunteer hours that we are giving. And also there are so many young the young kids, the teenagers get benefited out of these kind of programs. And also, if you see, like, our website, there are a lot of kids, the youth, they got the presidential award, like, once they reach, there's a program, like, so they, once they reach like 100 hours in a year, they get a presidential, they get nominated for the presidential awards. So there are a lot of young teenagers, they receive those. So we always try to concentrate on them mostly. So
Fantastic. I mean, are there any other final thoughts you both share? We're really excited. Is there any way we can go learn, like a website you can leave us with? Any final thoughts you all have?
exactly. So there is a website that we have every information in there, like, Seva Diwali, SevaUSA.org. So you can see all the programs that runs, like, all the year. So the recently we had in the RTP area, this is like our third program, I would say. We have raised volleyball tournaments, and Seva Lead programs, and Adapt a Highway. those kind of programs. So every information that's on there on the website, and also you can subscribe to the the website, like you'll get the newsletters and everything. So yeah.
Okay,
And also-
And just really quickly, how important do you think it is, both to the Hindu and the Buddhist cultures and other cultures, to have that service element involved in the culture?
Hey,
and
Mark,
things of that
I
nature?
got the website up on my share screen. If you want to bring up the website, I got it up on my
I'll
share
bring up the
screen to
wait
see
as
what-
well. And I didn't know
There we
if
go.
either of our
Yeah.
two guests wanted to talk about that, because definitely I think that service is very important. And I was just wondering how important is it as a cultural aspect, because I do know that sometimes certain cultures feel that they are more involved in service than others. But I was just wondering how important you feel it is within your own culture.
So especially in our culture, we strongly believe that, service in humanity is service in divinity. So it's among the community. So that strongly we believe those. We always, especially like the Hindu community that where we are, especially with the seva. So we always wanted to give that back to the community, and then teach our kids about the same. So it's a part of tradition also. Like I say, suppose if it is a Diwali, right? It's a festival of lights. Where we share the gifts, sweets among the friends and family, each other, and then trying to give back to the community. So that's kind of a good to the family. So that's the part of the tradition, I would say. Yeah.
Yes, I mean it's just so exciting what you all are doing, and I can't think of a better time to celebrate this now during still a tough time for many people out there. As I said in my monologue, the hunger out there, the rising grocery prices, gas prices, housing prices, homeless people that we always see on the streets and during the holidays. All of this goes to a good cause. So my message to anyone listening to the show is this Thanksgiving, think about somebody that you can help. I think it's always a great way to give back. So on that, we want to. I'm going to just keep the floor open for questions. You all are willing to stay for the whole show if you want. I know we'll
Sure.
be interviewing on the radio this evening, but thank you all so much for being with us today.
Steve, I want to make a quick comment. I just want to say it's heartwarming that they're reaching out to other communities and other, whether it's Ukraine, whether it's Florida, what have you, and not just giving back within. I think it's very, very, extremely nice.
Yes, thank you so much, Lee.
If you show my share screen, I show Arati's talked about Bhutan and Nepal, and I think it's very important for people to understand where these countries are, in respect to India, in respect to it. So there's Nepal here, right northeast of India, and there's Bhutan right between pieces of India there and Bangladesh. So I mean these are very close to China. I mean Burma's right there. And so I mean, there's the whole area here, especially Bangladesh, Bhutan, Nepal, food insecurities, a lot of issues with drought, a lot of issues with crop aspects, deforestation, all these things. And, everyone goes to Nepal to go to Mount Everest, but people don't understand that that's not, that doesn't exactly feed the people in Nepal. So it's interesting to note that's exactly what we're talking about. I have a show called Worldview that I try to go over these countries so that people understand exactly where they are, where they're located. Because a lot of people don't even know. You say Nepal, they go.
In the United States, they don't know where they are.
Yeah. Hello. They don't understand.
Where's Nepal?
Right. Well, or India's part of Asia. It's like,
Right.
huh? What? So
Yeah.
it's that type of thing. So I'm really glad to do that. And I think this is great. I mean, the idea behind helping other people, sharing and doing that, that's just,
Yeah.
Well,
We actually do broadcast shows from Bangladesh and India, and we have a relationship with the CEO of Biz Nepal, where we broadcast into Nepal. So we do cover Nepal, we cover India, and we cover Bangladesh, but we don't cover, what's the other one, Bhutan or something like that?
Bhutan.
Yeah, we're not in Bhutan to my knowledge yet, but we just passed over 200,000 viewers. So, we're today, by the way. So it's kind of a milestone for the Pod TV network. Anyway.
Well,
That's my comment.
we want to let them go. They've got a busy day. We will see you this evening. And of course, I'll be there tomorrow as one of the guests at the event, 3:00 on Saturday at the Hindu Society in North Carolina. But thank you all so much for being with us today and for being an everlasting reminder of the light of love that and hope that exists within each of us. Can't think of a time to bring that message on than on a political show. But thank you
Right.
all so much, and we'll see you soon.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
thank you, Steve.
Thank you
And
so
also, we
much.
would encourage all the participants. Please join us on in HSNC. So thank you.
Yeah, tomorrow, Saturday at 3:00 is
Yep,
when I've been told to be
exactly.
there. But thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Be
Thank
safe, everyone.
Thank you both for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you. So that was a wonderful delight, good gentlemen. Team, thank you so much for bringing that guest in last minute. It's always good to bring awareness of these great issues. I sent them the Watch Live link so they can. Mark, we can take maybe their clip.
Yeah.
I want to send them a link and they can see it and spread it. But congratulations on 200,000 views. We need to throw like a celebration, Nick. Congratulations. And I guess we're going to finish up our political conversation and then get into Dan Worthington. How does it feel that you're no longer going to have to say the word Speaker Pelosi? Are you happy?
Yes, I'm happy. I don't care about Dan.
He's crying.
He's crying.
I have a tear in my eye.
He can't handle it. He just heard about it, Steve. Yeah. So he can't handle it. That's,
No, I know she is actually not running for even the minority leader position, and going to be
should
some
we
other.
have a moment of
fellow.
silence because of that? Is that what we're going to do? A moment of
Well, it
silence?
would be the
We already
first
had
time
one
we
of
had
those
any
silence.
silence
Yeah, I
out of
guess
her
we're never going to have a
over
moment
the
of
last
silence.
35 years. So
I'd
Right.
be surprised if she runs again for office, but I think definitely she's going to be, kind of retiring. And Hakeem Jeffries, I think, will be the minority leader. But then I think either him or Adam Schiff would be the next speaker of the Democrats.
that bulgy eye character,
Adam
he makes me
Schifter?
absolutely
Adam
ill every
Shifty?
time I
Really?
look at him.
Adam Shifty.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Adam
No,
Schiff.
Hakeem. I've seen Hakeem Jeffries, and I took a look at his bio, and it's like, okay, this guy could be
So
passable. I mean, he could do it.
real
Like I said,
quickly,
was it-
because we didn't talk about it while I was gone yesterday, but real quickly, Donald Trump, what does this
Who?
mean now? I'm going to start with Dan Worthington and then sort of go down. What does this mean for the presidential elections? What does this mean for the Republicans after not doing so well in these midterms? Is it a bad or good thing that Donald's getting in? Because, and I'm just going to be facetious here to say that I still think that he has the greatest chance of winning the nomination, because if multiple people in, he could get to 30% like last time. And he's also got a massive ground operation in all 50 states. So even though DeSantis is a popular, well-known governor with a couple $100 million in the bank, it's a lot of work to create an organization in every state. So Dan, do you think he's got a chance to be the nominee of the party? But do you think that's good for Republicans or bad for Republicans?
I hope not. Chances are that he can beat DeSantis, but I would hope that he would not, that he see the wisdom in not pursuing that at this point in his life. I think he's certainly paid enough of a price for continuing to have that desire, because he's been under constant attack from the Democrats and from the Democrats-controlled Justice Department and New York authorities and everybody else trying to put as much pressure on him. I've never seen anything like this. Now, he brought a lot of it on his own because of the way his personality is. But still, I think it's a little ridiculous.
I'm sorry, Dan, what do you mean?
Disproportionality of all of the attempts by the Democrats and their minions to bring him down. When Biden is guilty of more illegal activities and that kind of thing, and yet they protect him, and they had clear evidence on the Biden son's laptop. I mean, and then they claimed it was Russian disinformation when everybody knew it wasn't. It's just like it's a con game going on all the time, and the problem is that the FBI and the other authorities are participating in that con game, and they're the ones that are sending disinformation. to people and claiming things that are not true when they know they are. And they just lying their asses off, and American people are seeing this, and it's kind of hilarious but sad to see the integrity of our law enforcement and justice system being so maligned by these constant attacks on Trump. He's not worth it, number one. I mean, it's like I think it was who was it in England? The great religious leader who said, if you chase Satan to the shores and break down all the laws of England to chase him there, what is there to protect us when he turns back and starts chasing back?
And I'm going to go to
the laws
Shaquille.
of the United States have not been honored by law enforcement. I mean, and it's obvious. I mean, people can see it, and I think that's what's pissing people mostly off about Trump is he's not being treated fairly. He's been being treated disproportionately, especially in light of the other party leader being such a crook too. But most of Trump's problems are private, not public, and Joe Biden's were public, meaning he was either serving in an official capacity for the United States and or in a position to use his position for ill-gotten gain with our enemies like China and others. I mean, it's just absolute. Ukraine court determined that he had taken the bribe. I mean, it was determined by the Ukraine court. Now they may be pitching a different tune now that they need his money, but this has gotten ridiculous. Seriously.
But
ridiculous. Well, I think before I go to Shaquille Latimer, Shaquille, we want to get your opinion about this, and then we want to talk about the climate summit, and also the Polish missile, the Russian missile or Russian-made missile that's gone into Poland. Really don't know where that came from, but real quickly I'm going to ask Shaquille a question. Shaquille, assuming Trump is the nominee, is that going to be good news or bad news for the Republicans? Devil's advocate for me says that one of the issues Democrats have had is that they're so obsessed with Trump that if he is the nominee, they're going to get even further away for the issues that matter, and it could actually go to his advantage because there's almost, like Dan Worthington said, a Trump obsession that rather than focusing on the policies, inflation, gas prices, and even what former President Clinton said. When I heard the former president talk at Wiley Nichols' event, the good thing was I didn't hear the former president talk about Donald Trump at all, even though he defeated his wife. He basically just said, we've got, as Democrats, have to talk about how our policies do this, this, and this. So, Shaquille, what are your thoughts on that? Do you think that this Trump obsession is actually what hurts the Democrats?
Shaquille's on his plane. We can't really hear him, but
Hi, Art. Hey, Shaquille, you on an airplane?
Yeah, Shaquille's on an airplane.
Looks like he's on an airplane.
Are you muted, Shaquille?
He's not muted, but he's on an airplane. He's on his private.
God has shut the conservative voice up.
He's on his private jet.
No, you have not, Steve.
But
you've not shut the conservative voice up.
Exactly.
Even if he has to do ESP,
let me start with the panel. What do you think about the question? Do you believe that if Trump is the nominee, I think we all have to accept that he has a very good chance of being the nominee. I can tell you that right now.
I disagree. I totally disagree with that, Steve. He's got 7 million.
All he needs is 30%, and you need a ground game across the country.
Well,
DeSantis doesn't have a lot of time.
Now, I'm going to tell you right now. I do not think that Trump is going to become. Now, I'll tell you what I would like to do is I'd like to get assurances from Trump. First of all, if Trump is the nominee, I'm voting for him. I'm not going to vote for Biden. There's no way I'm voting for Biden or any Democrat in that ticket. There's not a moderate Democrat that's going to come forward within that area and attempt to take Biden's place. It just isn't going to work. So, I mean, where are we going to vote for? Newsom? So basically so now you got Trump. So I'm going to vote for Trump. Now, I would rather him not be the nominee. And I would like assurances from him that if he's not the nominee, he's not going to walk away with he's going to sit there and say, I throw my support behind the nominee. If he says those words, I throw my support behind the nominee, Republicans are in. We're in. I mean, I don't think there's going to be a problem in the world with getting a Republican in the White House. If he does that, if he doesn't do that, he's going to split the Republican Party, and the Democrats are going to walk through, and they're going to get, I don't care if it's Biden or if it's Biden's dog, he's going to be the president of the United States for the next 4 years. So it's going to be a very interesting,
It's going to be interesting. But Chris, along those same lines, and I hear what you're saying, but that could be like a Ross Perot like situation. I want to come back to something that Dan said earlier. Is that definitely, this kind of corruption element. And I'm not saying that there were not things that Hunter didn't do wrong and maybe he had some other involvement. But you said that some of these deals were private dealings and all of that. Real estate deals, which actually impact a lot of people, and casino deals, I don't know that I necessarily consider them private. And those are some of the bad things that Mr. Trump
did. I'm talking about is political public, meaning where it's part of a governmental official who's taking bribes and corruption.
I mean, that's been going on for a while. People just say the same thing about Noriega and our relationship with the drug race and a number of other things that people could say. I was going to bring up something that I'd love to hear folks' comments about. It's actually something that we talked about on this show before, and I want to hear both Chris and your thoughts about this, because one of the things that they are saying about whether it's Hakeem or whether it's other folks, is that we've talked to before, and I know that even Nick has brought up on shows about age limits. And actually, the average age of the House top Democratic leaders is about to drop by 30 years. And some people are thinking that could be a good thing. Other people are complaining about that because it was definitely an older age. As a matter of fact, they said that last year, the average age of the U.S. House was at least 65 years old, 40% of whom were Democrats. But now with this new leadership, we're going to see people like Hakeem come in, and he's in his 50s. We're going to see people like Catherine Clark come in, who's 59. We're going to see the sixth ranking leader, Pete Aguilar, come in, who's 43. So we're definitely going to see a young voice. And one of the things, Steve, that they've said is that technology continues to develop at a fast rate. America needs laws to keep pace with the evolution. So they're actually thinking that this young generation of leaders understand the internet and new technologies that could definitely help protect Americans from corporate overreach and the invasion of privacy. So that's one of the things that they're thinking could be good from the young people and all in that space. But they did say that according to some of the polls that are out there, some people don't want a younger Congress. I'm actually not against that, a younger Congress, but they did say that if Jeffries, Clark, and Aguilar move into the first, second, and third in command positions, the average age of the Democratic leaders would drop from 30 years, from 82.3. Man, that's some really old folks, and I can say that as a 6-year-old, to 51.3, well below America's preferred age limits for congressional lawmakers. So apparently 51.3 is too young. I'm thinking that's actually got some experience behind you and all of that and everything according to the polls. But I want to hear from Chris and others that when we've had this conversation, y'all have been like not that big on youth leadership. I actually have no problem with youth leadership. I would like to see some younger voices.
I mean, I have two daughters. One's 37, one's 35. I mean, they have definite, things that they want to change and things that they want to do. And my father always said, and I say it here, if you have children, they're solutions. They're not problems. Children are not problems. They're actually part of the solution. We have to give up the next generation. I thought Pelosi, that was a one thing that Nancy Pelosi did that I give her credit for, was to say, look, it's time to pass the baton on to a younger generation. Hey, it's interesting, Lee, it's interesting. Lee put me, he says, Chris, even teenagers. I think it's interesting how Newsom in California all of a sudden said that, you cannot buy a gun. You can't buy any type of weapon until you're 21. So you sit back and you say, okay, wait a minute. If that's the situation, then they shouldn't be voting. They shouldn't be driving. They shouldn't be in the military. They shouldn't be anything until they're 21 years old. So this is bullcrap. If we started this, if they're 18, they're adult, which means if they're 18, we need to start saying, look, you're paying taxes because you're 18 at this point in time. You probably have some job and you're paying taxes on that. It's time to step up. Figure out what you want to do.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, I mean, I'm good with it, Mark.
The other news, real quickly, let's go to the climate. We're going to come back to this, and I don't want to spend the time. I want to say one thing that Dan Worthington has said, and I do think it's true. I think part of the problem is that on both sides of the front, Republican and Democrat, the media is getting so involved in these elections. I mean, I remember when I was a kid during, ABC, CBS, and were the only news networks on there, the news media was just reporting the news and it wasn't really getting involved in the election. But now what's happened is it's become entertainment. So you have these political analysts that come on, and instead of really giving true political analysis, they're coming in with their own opinions. And I think this is furthering the division in America. If the media just got away, it'll never happen. But I've watched both CNN and Fox, and it's the same thing, whether it's Tucker Carlson or Don Lemon on CNN or Jake Tapper on CNN. They're coming in with their own preconceived notions. And I don't think that's good journalism, but that's a conversation for another time.
Part of that problem is that now we've gotten to this attitude because of things, and I'm actually a fan of these outlets, but because of things like Facebook and Twitter and the Clubhouse and all of that, everybody and their mother can have an opinion and be a news reporter and all in that space. So it's actually opened up the newsrooms, because before you definitely had to go to the journalism school, and definitely there were citizen journalists as well, but it was a more narrow field, whereas now a lot of people are regularly routining giving you coverage, and sometimes that can be a good thing. I mean, that's part of the reason, and we can argue as to whether we like the way that it went in police reform, but that's part of what happened with Black Lives Matter, is that folks had cell phones. And if you got a cell phone and you see something that's in injustice, you can take a picture of it and you can make it spread like wildfire and give the news the attention that it probably deserves. And we did have that before, even with some of the things that were going on in the civil rights era, but it was more the official TV cameras. It wasn't everybody and their cell phone and all of that. Imagine how much faster the the civil rights struggle would have gone if there was people taking pictures of some of those dogs and waters hoses in the 60s, if that was taking place now as opposed to then, because you still had to have some dissemination of the information and getting it out, and it wasn't as fast as it is now. Because literally, if Chris came down from where he's at and slapped me, and then somebody was walking by and took a picture of it, I can guarantee you it would be all over the news very quickly and all of that, and it would be a big controversy. As a matter of fact, that might not be a bad idea for Pod TV, because then our ratings would go up and all the but
hey, you want me to come smack you, Mark?
Shut up, Dan.
I wouldn't do that.
So let's go to the climate summit real quick. The one thing I forgot to mention is that the G20 summit next year will be in India. I'm not sure where in India it's going to be, but that's exciting. The fifth largest economy in the world will be hosting the G20. First time I think that's ever happened. But we'll talk about that later. But real quickly, can you all talk a little bit about the climate summit? So apparently not so successful. These poor countries saying they want richer countries to pay more for their fair share. It doesn't look like it was as successful. So any thoughts there?
Well, I think NPR handled it really well. I think they what they did was they went to Africa, and they talked to the different representatives from Africa, and Africa said, "Hey, wait a minute, everybody. We're talking about oil production, right? And now what we're going to do is we're going to say, okay, get rid of all the carbon footprints, and go, get rid of fossil fuels and get rid of all that stuff. Well, that's real nice for the U.S. and China, because you guys are the freaking, the heaviest users and the most polluter. But what about us? We're still developing. We need the oil. We need the coal. We need those types of things to make that happen. India, I noticed, was extremely silent, because India is plugging away mining coal like you'd never believe. Why? Because they want to produce steel. All of a sudden, they're going to be big steel producers. And who are they next to? China. So now all of a sudden, China is going to start outsourcing their steel production to India. And and as part of the Shanghai Cooperation. And this is all going to happen as part of that deal. So Steve, yeah, you're right. What's happening is the poor countries are saying, guess what? It's not so much that the richer countries have to pay us. It's got to be, you're going to have to let us develop like you develop all the industrial situation, right?
Chris, hold on a second. I got to bring up another country that is a world issue and all of that. And I was actually,
if you're saying France, I'm going to puke.
No, I'm not going to say France, because I know you don't even like French fries and French toast and all of that. But one of the things I was going to say is that there is a major event, a major world event. It goes on a regular basis, but they're already in the news. And part of that is it is a rich country, and sometimes rich countries don't always do the best in terms of rights and all of that, because there is a World Cup going on, and the World Cup is actually going to take place this weekend. I'm actually a fan of Brazil. Brazil, and that's who I'll be
Brazil
rooting
is
for
good.
and all of that. But
You're
Who
great.
cares?
hundreds of workers have died to build the Qatar World Cup stadiums, according to human rights folks, and they're saying that a lot of these were immigrants that were from South Asia and Africa, and they were toiling in temperatures up to 120 degrees in order to build these wonderful stadiums for these world class athletes and all of that. And then they turned around and they did something else for the world class athletes, because you can't have a big event. And I did go to a drinking school, so I'm about to say something a little bit on the facetious side, but you can't have a big event without having drinks. That's kind of what the World Cup is known for and all of that.
That's why they call it a cup.
But the sale of beers and other alcoholic beverages at the 2022 World Cup has been banned. So I'm really curious to see how the folks from Germany and other places that's part of their soccer celebration is going to do this.
And I think, Mark, you're right. Steve, and let's talk about that for a second. How did people get the COP? How did they get the COP? Oh, geez, wait a minute. They flew in jets, building up that carbon aspect. It's so hypocritical. They didn't exactly walk or take a bike. No, they took their cars, and the number of cars that were at COP were unbelievable. So
Where is
you
the
tell
World Cup
me,
being played? Where is it being played?
Qatar.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so BYOB, right? Bring your own bottle.
Yeah, right. So I mean, it's a guitar, and it's a. I mean, and you hear I just saw some of the news on Haystack News, and they had these kids that were in Qatar, and they were saying, "Oh, we're so excited about this. Oh, we're so excited." And I'm sitting there looking at these kids, going, "Wow, they are rich. They're rich kids. They're going to a private school. They have this. They're all smiles, and they get lunch, and they get breakfast, and they get dinner, and all that stuff. And then all of a sudden, you go to Africa." And you see Madagascar, and they're going through a massive drought right now, and they can't even grow. They cannot grow the crops that make them a country that's able to export. And we don't import it in the United States from Madagascar. If you take a look at some of the shirts that you wear, whatever else, some of them say made in Madagascar. Guess what? They're not made in Madagascar anymore. And the reason is because for whatever reason, the U.S. had decided that they were going to eliminate tariffs with Madagascar so they could make more money on each shirt. And they did away with that. So now Madagascar can't produce enough to be able to make revenues on that. So they're dying. People are dying. They have a water truck that stopped at one point in time and it was leaking. People were underneath that truck gathering the water to be able to live. I mean, this is great. And we're talking about climate change. Oh yeah, let's talk about climate change, because of course that's going to fix everything. No, it's not going to fix everything. And I have the stuff on the share drive right now on my share screen right now. I want you to put that up there if you would, Mark. This is your climate change, Steve. This is what you're talking about here. So here's your global sea level. The global sea level is going up. I agree. It's going up. Look at that. 1880 to 2020. Sucker's going up, going up, going up. My God, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? Guess what? This is millimeters. Millimeters, Steve.
Millimeters.
Millimeters. And guess what? If you take all the negative from 1880 to wherever this was to when it hit zero was 2000. So we've had negative global sea levels from 1880 all the way to 2000, and now we're up 50 millimeters, and everybody's panicking. So what does that mean? That means basically we're still in the negative. If you take all the positives here and all the negatives here, we're still in the negatives. It's still rising. But yes, it's not. By the time it hits 2060, 2070, 2080, even taking this as a straight line regression, you're still not going to have global sea levels like you think that you have. I'm not agreeing. Trust me, I'm not agreeing with Trump here from the standpoint of, hey, it's only 0.06.
Well, he's saying 300 years and 1/8 of an inch, but I think the reality is, I think there is climate change going on. I mean,
yes, I agree. I totally agree with that.
Yeah.
There is, but you know something, Steve? There's been climate change going on since the Earth cooled. How's that? Sure. And the interesting thing about it is,
Chris, and I'm sorry, speaking of climate change, apparently, and this is another story that came out, and I know that those of you that are into biblical scholarship and things of that nature will be glad, because apparently scientists over there studying Mount Kilimanjaro have discovered some ancient biblical truths, because they have definitely said that they see the ice up there as being like a time machine. So if read correctly, it can tell what the world was like many thousands of years ago. So using ice sample from the Mount Kilimanjaro, they have been able to study large scale changes in the climate, but they've also been looking at some of the ancient biblical stories and found out that there might be some truths to some of those stories based on what they are finding in the water. So it looks like there are some scientists.
Oh, we already knew that.
Well, the real question is, do we need a climate global conference, or do we need an energy global
Yeah.
conference?
Yeah.
See, my
Yeah, that's a
argument
Yeah.
would be,
point.
That's
it
good.
would
That's
be
a great
better to
point.
have an energy conference, not this global. Global is climate change is just a bunch of whiners.
Also, but
Okay,
that's a
they're
great
not
point.
people that are looking to solve problems. They're just
I
whining
spoke
about
about this yesterday to an international TV show, TV9, which is a huge network in Asia. So they brought me in to talk about, the midterm elections. But one thing we don't talk enough about, Nick, is, and I keep coming back to this point, but I love what Fareed Zakaria coined the term energy transition strategy, right? So the fact of the matter is 88% of our electricity and power is still coming from fossil fuels. So what's happened in America is that we're completely saying, let's not invest anymore in fossil fuels. Let's go completely to renewables. We don't have the infrastructure ready for that.
right.
So I think the key is going to become, how do we transition? One way is converting, coal into natural gas, looking at nuclear power as a way of these energy sources, while we're also, regardless of who's in the White House, whether it's Trump again, whether it's Biden, whether it's another Democrat, how do we open up our own pipelines in the U.S.? How do we eventually get the world less dependent on Russian oil or Saudi oil, and getting our own reserves opened up, so that way we're not so dependent on the rest of the world, whether it's Iran, whether it's Venezuela, whether it's Saudi Arabia, right? And so I love this notion of energy transition, and that's a great idea for a global summit. How does the world pull together so that we can support our quitting our dependence on? Because what that means is our foreign policy has to be going out to these ruthless, maniacal dictators, like in Venezuela, saying, "Look, we need your oil," like in Iran, saying, "We need your oil," and yet Iran is supporting
Steve,
Russia. Right.
I remind you that Trump had us at energy independence just 2 short years ago. And Biden policies is what led us away from that.
And I will have to agree with you. And I think the president did say, one thing he did say, that, but I'm going to defend the former president, which is hard as a Democrat. But he did say that. Well, he did say the reserves were higher, and that it went from all the way to completely draining, which isn't necessarily true. But to defend the former president, what I will say is that legally we have to sell reserves. So the reserves did go down, and Congress did block the funding that Trump wanted to get the reserves up, right? So he already came in at a negative.
They did.
Yeah. So I think the key is, how do we, whoever's in the White House, we got to get those reserves back up, whether it's DeSantis, Trump, whether it's Biden, whether it's Gavin Newsom.
It's interesting. Trump tried to put an infrastructure bill through Congress when he was president, and the Democrats blocked it. Why? They didn't want Trump to have credit for it. And then also some of the assistance during the global pandemic. Trump tried to get that through, and the Democrats blocked it. Why? They didn't want him to get any credit for it. Trump's effort to speed up the vaccines was phenomenal. He had it. He claimed a national emergency, and he had those vaccines in place quicker than anyone ever could imagine. And he didn't get any credit for it. In fact, he was demonized. And there were more people who died in this second year when Biden was involved, after the vaccines were in play, than were without them. So it's a sort of an interesting. We need to stop playing politics with the lives of American people. And that's what happens when these parties can't cooperate on the common good of Americans. It's wrong.
It's on both sides, because the Republicans announced when they're in control of the Congress, they want to investigate Hunter Biden. Investigating Hunter Biden does not solve climate change. It doesn't solve our Medicare going
That's right.
broke. It doesn't solve
Yep.
Social Security going
No,
broke.
and you know, you're
So
right
it's a
about
waste
that.
of
But if the
time.
FBI would do their job, then they wouldn't have to.
Well, then, but Dan, that's their job. It's not Congress's job. Congress's job is to look forward. Not
Well, if we
back.
didn't have a corrupt FBI,
Well, okay, but
and a
their
corrupt
job
Justice Department.
their job is to lead the country forward, not backwards.
well, you know, tell
And-
that to the Democratic Congress that just spent a whole freaking 2 years wasting their time on Trump.
I did. I said it's a waste of time.
Republicans,
Yeah,
and a lot of
yeah, you're right.
there's a
I
lot
think
of
that's
I mean,
corruption that
yeah.
goes on.
Let's get back to
both sides.
focusing on
Both
the issues.
parties
which
are
is-
doing it. You know, it's
You know,
not one
it's wrong.
party.
I agree. They need to do
You
the
know,
people's
they
business.
need to
It's
look
both on
forward,
Can't be
both-
not
it's
dicking
wrong on
around
both
with
sides.
and hurting people, right?
Yeah, and
Hey, Nick
when
and
I
Dan.
heard their agenda, hey, now we're in control of Congress. We're going to investigate all the Democrats. That is not what they need to do. They need to solve Social Security.
Well, at
They
least
need
the
to
gays will
solve
be
our
happy
health
about
issues.
getting married, and you know that'll be.
Yeah, but even that's tied
Major
into other issues
accomplishment.
as well because they want to make sure that the religious rights are put in there as well. So there's a lot of political things that go on in that. space
Yeah,
as
what
well.
happened? The
There's a lot of
Senate bill they've
tit and
approved. So
tat
that's a
that goes on
compromise
in
bill.
the way they weave these
recognizing-
bills together. I do have to ask Nick a real quick question. Well, actually, I did see a serious medical thing that is good news for a lot of folks that are in certain communities, including those in the African American community and all of that. But before I get to that good news, I was going to say, are we having like a wedding contest going on between the Bidens and the Trumps? Because I saw that we had the big Trump wedding. Now apparently we've got the big Naomi Biden wedding. So it's just like this for Chad. Is this going to be part of the campaign as well? Is the wedding battles? Because definitely that seems to be something going on.
But maybe we should do a TV show and have a competition.
Yeah, exactly.
Who's Naomi Biden? Is she the granddaughter?
Huh?
Naomi Biden is the
Granddaughter.
Granddaughter,
right.
married.
Yeah.
granddaughter.
So I wanted to show on my share screen a typical
That's
day in the life of the Senate. So I'd like to just point
Okay,
this out.
let's see what
Anybody
these
can
guys
get in
do
this.
for-
You can get into the congressional record, congress.gov. This is your typical day. You talk about, Senate, congressional record, and then the prayer, Pledge of Allegiance, reservation of leader time, whatever the hell that means, conclusion of morning business, and then you have a legislative session, and then you have some change of vote. And the change of vote was basically somebody saying, I'd like to change my vote on something, and I'd like because I didn't mean to vote this way, I wanted to vote this way. So that's what happens there. And then you have morning business. Wow, again. And then you have a tribute to somebody, and then you have additional statements, and then you have a tribute, and guess what? That's it.
That's
So
it.
This is
Don't they do any work
congratulations, Senate. So what you did was you talked
Eliminate
about
half
the
that
the,
stuff,
the,
yeah.
whatever the
this
reservation of
every
marriage
day?
act. This is the
Okay.
reservation of marriage act. This was
Right.
all about. And if anybody wants to see how this went and whatever else, all they have to do is they can get their PDF. They can actually get the PDF on the legislative session, and the legislative session it'll show you exactly who said what to whom. Respective
Yeah.
Marriage Act, and then it goes into who said it and what happened and all these different things.
Yeah,
So
you
my
did
my
it.
recommendation is this. This is a transcription of actual, honest to God, no kidding, senators talking about this stuff. So I think that people need to go in there. They need to find out, hey, look, what did my representative do during this? How did they vote? What did they do? What did they say? All these different things. I mean, it says it all here. This is all a transcription of what
It's
happened
all
on
in the
November
meantime, the United
16th,
States of America
2022.
Going broke. That's really smart. Okay, we have a $31 trillion debt. We're going broke, and these guys are looking at the Defense of Marriage Act. That is just really brilliant.
And
I
it didn't
mean,
do anything. The Obergefell case actually that is current right now is actually better for gays for marriage than
Yeah,
this
but-
bill is, and that's
yeah,
what's
but
hilarious.
In the
So
meantime,
it codified
our
something that's
train
worth.
system looks
And
third
so real
world.
quickly, let's go
Yeah,
to
because
the
if there was
I
speaking
don't
of
get it.
good
What are these
news,
guys
I
doing
do
for a
want to
living?
get to the good news I was going to mention
You know,
earlier.
Pledge
For
of
those that
Allegiance.
are
I don't need to
that are
pledge
diabetic,
allegiance
and I do
every
have some
bloody
friends that are
day.
diabetic.
These
The U.S.
people
Food
never
and Drug
respect my
Administration
time. I'm
approved the
serious.
first drug that delays the onset of a stage of type 1 diabetes. So, we're often not talking about medical things and whether whether the FDA is doing anything in that space. And definitely they're working on things that are dealing with the pandemic and other things in that space. But definitely their first-class therapy as an important new treatment option for certain at-risk patients, according to one of the leaders of the FDA. So I know that is a big issue in a lot of communities. So hopefully
Right.
this will continue going on, and we will see some of this research continuing, and that it will be given greater access and all in that space. Oh, but on a lighter note, and I don't know that Dan's going to like this one, the Senate Democrats have urged the FDA to ease access to the abortion bills. So that is also something that is going on as well. And the Senate passed the marijuana medication bill. So they did pass that if you're taking the cannabis for a medical reason, it's all right. Just don't be taking it for other reasons.
And don't take it
They'll
to
never
Russia.
deal with hard issues up there in
Don't
Congress.
take
will
it to
they?
Russia. You're going to serve 9 years.
Well,
in
no,
jail.
you got to send it to Russia. You know, that's, yeah, no. You know, Brittany Griner's got to have her fix, you know.
Maybe she'll start pledging you to the allegiance.
I feel bad for Brittany
Maybe she
Griner.
should be a
I hope they get her out of there because that's 9 years in
Yeah,
jail.
Good night.
So anyway, we're going to get ready for closeout.
Yes.
Just wanted to go ahead and begin my closeout, if that's okay, Mark.
Perfectly fine. I'll drop everybody off and we'll make sure to have that. Chris, please don't dance. We can't have that dance in the background. It makes me laugh too hard.
Well, folks, it's been a wonderful morning with all of you around the world on Pod and Roku TV's World Edition. And today I wanted to end my monologue with we're going to talk about his presidency next week on November 23rd. John F. Kennedy in 1963 was assassinated. But one of the things that the late president said was he laid the vision for man walking on the moon. And I always get emotional when I see space flight, but it was emotional once again to see the Artemis take off last week. And it reminded the words of the president who said, why do we go to the moon? Not because it is easy, but because it is hard. And my late father-in-law actually came to America. He ended up becoming a U.S. Air Force colonel. He was so inspired as a young aspiring physician to see Neil Armstrong walk on the moon. And he at that point said, I need to go to a country that is really, really helping us bring people together, and was an inspiration to around the world. Flash forward to today's world, and we see all of the great things going on in America, but still many terrible things: violence, division, turbulence. Perhaps there couldn't be a better time for our nation to come together and support man walking on the moon again. Because if anything we've learned from American history, we're so much stronger when we're working together, where we're coming together to adhere to a vision. And that's what makes me proud as an American. The fact that President Kennedy wasn't able to see Neil Armstrong walk on the moon. Perhaps he was watching from heaven, understanding that his vision became a reality, that we can work together, we can build bridges. And the space exploration to the moon led forward a period of innovation for research. There was more technology today in our iPhone than there was in Apollo 13 or any of the Apollo spacecraft. Today, we have that opportunity. So I want to thank all of the individuals who led to this great place where we can actually see a space flight to the moon. And perhaps in our lifetime, or maybe our kids' or grandkids' lifetime, we'll see a manned mission to Mars. But my challenge today on Roku and Pod TV is let's think big. Let's think bold. And on Monday and this week, we'll be talking a little bit about John F. Kennedy's presidency, where he said, ask not what your country can do for you. What can you do for your country? And he also prayed for a genuine peace, a peace not only for our time, but for all time. Well, let's begin to think about those thoughts next week. And I want to end this monologue, and I'll begin maybe a little bit more about the moonshot, the moon space exploration, and what does it mean for us to think big in all areas of our lives. On that note, from our family to yours, we wish you all the best on Pod and Roku TV. Looking forward to a bright future for all of us. This is Steve Rao signing off, and I'll be back on Monday as we prepare for Thanksgiving and talk about John F. Kennedy. Thank you all so much. Be safe wherever you are.